actually worked in a factory for about 18 months. So I was in the Lipton Tea factory in Suffolk, Virginia, and I could tell you
Wow.
more about tea than you could ever want to know. But that was a pretty fun experience.
That's cool. I'm curious why they had that in Virginia. Were they getting like, I would assume they were getting the tea leaves from like all over, or where did tea leaves even come from like that?
Yeah, so it was actually pretty interesting because now this episode's now about tea, but they the the altitude and the region of the world that the tea is grown from, and it's always two leaves in a bud, is what they do. Um, that has different tastes, and so to get the Lipton tea taste, depending on the blend, you would say, okay, we're going to have 4 parts Kenya, 1 part Sri Lanka, 3 parts Chile, and 1 part Argentina. And like we would have these giant robots would take these sacks and cut them up, and that's how we blend the tea. And so it was an interesting thing because you had to try to make sure that it was a consistent taste, regardless of when it was made or where it came through. Um, but yeah, that was a fascinating time. I remember I was a production supervisor, and so when it was inherently very dusty, and so I would be in there, and if I had to help clean a machine or do things, I would just come out and I would have like tea behind my ears and my hair. You would sneeze and tea would come out, and it was pretty wild. And I juxtaposed that experience with going into an SMT clean room where you're in electrostatic stuff and it's positive pressure, and even just one hair can mess up the manufacturing process. And there's just this huge gamut of what factories are or could be like, and it's just, I don't know, it's just fascinating.
The question that gotta ask about tea is who makes sure that the taste is consistent? Is there like a Lipton taste,
So,
connoisseur that understands, okay, this batch is wrong and this one's good? How do they make sure that taste is consistent without drinking a bunch of tea?
they do drink a lot of tea, but this is the craziest thing ever: is there are actually professional tea tasters. Like Lipton has, I believe they're in the UK. There is a master tea taster who is like basically coming up with a standard of like, this is how this blend should taste. And in each factory, there's a quality person. They've got factories around the world, but they basically will send out a sample and say, okay, guys, there's like 4 of these guys in the world. They say, hey, here is how we're going to calibrate. This is what the taste should be. And so they will all drink it. They'll calibrate what it needs to be, and then they taste every batch that comes off several times throughout the process, and they'll calibrate to figure out like, okay, is it too acidic? Is it too sweet? Is it, does it have this different tone of things? And imagine doing that with, how many varieties of herbal tea or regular tea does Lipton have? I mean, it's enormous. And so, yeah, there are actually people with crazy sophisticated taste buds or, senses of smell that are calibrating to make sure it tastes good when it comes out. It's fascinating.